Velda Baker. I'm a faith community nurse, so I have my bachelor's in nursing, and I've been a nurse for 35 years this summer. I can't believe it. I've been the faith community nurse here at Marian House for 8 years, but I am paid by Penrose-St. Francis to be here 3 days a week. So Penrose-St. Francis pays me and all that stuff, and my supervisor is at Penrose. But we have a team of faith community nurses that we meet monthly just to encourage each other, pray for our clients, update our stats, update our forms, make sure we're collecting the information we need, and that helps then Catholic Charities, Westside Cares, Tri-Lakes Cares, where we're at, know what we're doing. We see clients on a walk-in basis. People can call and make an appointment to see me, but the majority of my clients just walk in after they've had lunch, or walk in and see me when they're here getting their mail and need help getting prescriptions filled because they can't afford them, or they have prescriptions that are no longer active and need new prescriptions written, so then I can connect them with either the SET clinic or another primary care provider, make sure their Medicaid is active or their Medicare, just kind of doing a whole, what we call a professional nursing assessment, which is what is your physical needs, what are your emotional needs, what are your spiritual needs, what are your relational needs. Sometimes our clients are in very abusive relationships, and this is a safe place to talk about that. Sometimes they're very spiritually bereft, and I've had clients come in on the street. You have to be very stoic, very strong, and in here it's a safe place, and they might be grieving the loss of a friend, grieving the loss of a pet, grieving lots of things that they can't do on the street. And just hearing their grief and their losses helps them kind of sort through things. And then we can start talking about physical needs and psychological needs, but a lot of times we need to address those spiritual needs first. And then that allows them to open up about what else they need help with. I do a plan of care with my clients. I have lots of resources that I can connect people with, and I've got transportation vouchers, bus passes to help them get to where they need to go. We can call together on the phone if they need to make an appointment. Sometimes, well, many times our clients have lost their phones, they don't have minutes on their phones, and for them to make a doctor's appointment or to make an appointment to meet with Medicaid is very difficult. So we can do that together. Sometimes when you're very depressed or very anxious or have other psychological problems going on, phoning and being on hold and hearing that music and the voices just really increases people's anxiety, and they just hang up. So if we can just sit here, put it on speakerphone and talk with the doctor's office or the optometrist office or the pharmacy and get things cleared up, I can be an advocate, but we're doing it together. I'm not doing all the work, we're doing it together. So a lot of my time is spent on the phone with clients in my office, making appointments, explaining things, doing a lot of teaching and advocating. And that's where I feel I go home at the end of the day, it's like, oh, they've been trying to do this for months and months and months. They sat down in my office and we got it figured out together today. And those are days that I go home and say, yes, that's why I'm here. As far as volunteers go, I do have volunteers that can volunteer with me through Penrose-St. Francis if they're going to help me, especially with client information, because it's HIPAA protected, a lot of it's medical information, and in order to have access to that or help me help clients, then they need to go through our Penrose-St. Francis volunteer orientation. And that's just due to the fact that I'm a Penrose employee, and if they're working with me, they have to go through the Penrose volunteer orientation so that we're kind of all on the same page. And the things that volunteers can help me with are making follow-up phone calls, helping clients fill out paperwork for funding that we can get through Trimble Fund, A.B. Hunter Fund. That helps a lot with high dental treatment plans, helps with like ongoing medications if they're high deductibles and things like that. So, and that just takes a lot of time, filling out those forms with clients, sending it in, getting the paperwork copied and sending it into these foundations that have funding. And the funding is there, it's just accessing it takes time. And so I love to have volunteers help with that, especially if they don't mind interacting with clients, filling out forms, making phone calls, following up. That takes a lot of time. And then praying with clients. At the end of a lot of my time with a client, I'll do what we call a plan of care. And it's like, okay, I've given you 2 bus passes. I need you to go to the pharmacy with this voucher, get your prescription filled, and then in 2 days come back and get your blood pressure checked with me, and then we're going to make a phone call to your doctor's office to make a follow-up appointment with them. And so we write that all out, and then it helps if we pray over it, because for a lot of these people, that's a lot of information, and I don't want to overload them, but being able to pray with them over that plan of care is like, help the bus ride to go well today. Help us be able to get a doctor's appointment quickly that works into their time frame, and getting lunch here and a doctor's office appointment and a bus pass and all that can take hours and hours just to get to a doctor's appointment, and then they miss lunch. And so we just pray over the timing of everything, that they would have a calm heart, that they would be able to have a good doctor's visit. If there's bad news that they get from the ER, a lot of times people come in with ER discharge orders and they just don't understand what it all means, and they're very afraid. And we can pray over that and say, thank you that this isn't as bad a news as they thought it was. And just being able to educate and pray and calm people's spirits is a lot of what I do. And then connecting people with the right resources, helping pay for medications, pay for dental, pay for eyeglasses, pay for co-pays, until other things kind of fall into place, kind of bridge those gaps so that somebody doesn't have to go back to the hospital because of high blood pressure, because they couldn't afford their $4 copay for their high blood pressure medicine. So those are all things that I do, and each day is very different. I didn't really know much about Catholic Charities other than they had the soup kitchen. And then when I was working at Penrose in the hospital and I started taking the Faith Community Nursing course, I found out more about Catholic Charities. And then when there was an opening for a faith community nurse, I found out even more that, oh my goodness, they offer clothing, or they used to offer clothing, but food and case management and all that, and now they offer jobs, which is something they didn't do when I first came here. And the family connections piece, they grew so much that they outgrew the space here, and now they're over at the Helen Hunt campus. And Catholic Charities is growing and meeting needs, and every time I tell people about Catholic Charities, now that I know more about it, that it's more than just a soup kitchen, I just love sharing that with people, that it's a lot more than just a soup kitchen. Oh, I've had many. Just last week, I'll share this one. Just last week, there's a gentleman who is here from out of town, was here looking for work, had a psychiatric emergency, ended up in the hospital for a couple weeks, couldn't afford his medications when he came out, and so they had him call me. The hospital had him call me, and we were able to see him the next morning, get his medications paid for, and he'd been sleeping in his car, had been eating food out of a can, and I said, you look kind of hungry and hadn't had a lot to eat and drink. I said, why don't we have you eat lunch first and then we'll finish this up? Because I'd asked it, one of my intake questions is, do you run out of food by the end of the month, and how often? Frequently, occasionally, or never? And he goes, well, frequently, because I haven't had a hot meal in over a week. I'm like, okay, let's get you something to eat. And he came back, he said, oh, I feel so much better. That was a very good meal. And we went on and did our stuff. I got a phone call later in the afternoon from this gentleman. I picked it up and I said, how are you doing? Did you get your medications? Yes, got my medications. I'm starting to feel a little bit better now, not as shaky. And he said, that meal was so good. He said, do they offer an evening meal? I'm like, no, but come back tomorrow for lunch. And so I was able to share that with the kitchen staff, that somebody so appreciated their lunch meal, wanted to come back for an evening meal. So that was a really good day last week. I'd say come in and volunteer and give yourself time to just adjust. Listen to people, just kind of watch how things happen, and as you get comfortable, then start engaging with people more and more, asking them how their day is, asking them questions you would like to be asked, and listening. And then as you feel more comfortable, just start doing more, and give yourself permission to be a little overwhelmed when you first start, and know that there's lots of people here that will come along. It's not you're here by yourself and okay, I've got to handle this one person's problem. It's like, no, you can handle one puzzle piece of that person's problem, and then we collaborate with Heather, or we collaborate with jobs, or we collaborate with the set clinic, whatever. And it's like, if you can handle one piece for this person and hold that burden for them for 10, 15, 20 minutes, and then get them connected with somebody else, or maybe just for that day, hold that burden with them and say, okay, now I need to hand this back to you, but I'd like to see you again tomorrow, or come back for a hot meal tomorrow, and we can just keep working on this. So it can be really overwhelming at first for a volunteer. I know it's very overwhelming for me, and I was paid. Oops. And so just give yourself permission to absorb and watch, and then slowly start engaging. And volunteers are what stretch the staff, make our work go farther. And we could not do what we do here without volunteers. Absolutely could not do what we do without volunteers. So that's really, I highly recommend coming and volunteering here.
Wonderful.